Hello, Facebook Live. So I have a question that someone has asked that I am going to start with because I think it's a really good one. Um, Confusing health recommendations, confusing food recommendations. The government is always giving us different recommendations on how we should eat to be healthy. And they say it's based on this study or that study or this study or that study. And how is a person supposed to know what's actually good for them to eat when the message is changing all of the time? It's incredibly, incredibly confusing. And so I completely understand that that is something that gives people problems all of the time. How do you know what to eat when the recommendations are changing? So let me talk about something that has been impacting food policy and how people eat, and therefore health, for a really long time. A lot of food recommendations are made based on what is supposedly supposed to be good for your heart health. And for about 50 years, we have been brainwashed when it comes to this. So there were supposedly studies done that determined that cholesterol was bad for heart health. And the person who started this whole thing off, I think it was Ansel Keys was his name, and he decided to look at a study. I maybe have the names completely wrong, but looking at a study that was done with rabbits to test the effects of their eating cholesterol, and they found that cholesterol was bad for the health of rabbits. Like it caused them cardiovascular problems, heart problems. And so from that, they concluded that cholesterol was bad for cardiovascular health. What they didn't account for in doing that study and in using that study was that rabbits don't eat cholesterol. Rabbits eat plants, and there is no cholesterol in plants. So they were feeding a completely unnatural food to these rabbits. And so understandably, it made them sick. But they concluded from that study that cholesterol was therefore bad for the heart health, cardiovascular health of human beings. And we have been told that cholesterol and fat are bad for our cardiovascular health ever since. And even though it's been over 30 years since they've had newer studies showing that cholesterol is not bad for your cardiovascular health, we are still being impacted. The dietary recommendations are still being impacted by that 50 years ago information. And I don't know how long ago it's been, a couple years now, that they finally removed um, a block about cholesterol in the USDA's dietary recommendations. Now they don't specify an amount. But before, the dietary recommendations used to actively say that you should not have cholesterol because it was bad for cardiovascular health. Hello, Elizabeth. So finally, they no longer actively say that cholesterol is bad for cardiovascular health, but they don't tell you all of the story. So the truth is that cholesterol is really important for health, and the issue is the quality of the cholesterol. When cholesterol is oxidized, that's when it can cause more of a problem. But we need to have cholesterol in our diet. Every single cell wall in your body requires cholesterol to be part of the membrane so that cell wall can function. And a huge amount of the brain tissue is made of cholesterol. So we need cholesterol. Our bodies need a lot of cholesterol to make hormones with. And anytime you're stressed, your body needs more cholesterol to be able to help with the healing process and hormone management. All those things require cholesterol. So if you don't have enough cholesterol for your body's needs, your body makes more cholesterol. It is not possible for you to eat enough cholesterol to be able to meet your body's needs. And so your body, your liver, and the cells of your body are making cholesterol every day because you're not eating enough to be able to meet your body's needs. So the whole thing about needing to reduce the amount of cholesterol that we eat to be able to have healthy hearts is just plain wrong. And by continuing to put that message out there, they're giving you incomplete information and to some extent wrong information. So fat kind of got lumped in there. And they say, you know, you need to have a low-fat diet. Again, if you don't have enough fat, then your body's not able to function properly. And the fats that are recommended to eat because they are heart healthy are the liquid oils, the vegetable oils, the seed oils. What they don't tell you is that those oils are some of the worst possible oils and fats that you can eat. So we talked about oxidized cholesterol and oxidized oils. So the seed oils, soy, corn, canola, those are highly processed, and the process of processing those oils causes them to go rancid. So those oils are bad and they cause inflammation. They increase inflammation in your body. It's important that your body be able to have inflammation to be able to be healthy. But when you eat those oils, it causes an increase in inflammation just to deal with oil, just to deal with the toxicity of the oil and the rancidity of the oil. And that causes all kinds of problems in your cardiovascular health. So part of what happens with cardiovascular disease is atherosclerosis. So atherosclerosis is where fat deposits wind up inside the walls of your arteries. The arteries are the blood vessels in your body where the blood gets pumped out, okay? And the arteries are under the pressure. So there's pressure in the arteries that has the blood travel through your body. It's more complicated than that, but for now that's good enough, okay? So what happens when there's a lot of inflammation in your body is it causes inflammation in the walls of the arteries. You get little inflamed, so it's like extra fluid in the area. So you get extra fluid in the tissues of the arteries. And then it causes little nicks and tears to happen in the arteries. So as the blood gets pushed through the artery, it hits the same places on the artery wall over and over and over again with the pressure of the blood going through. And that causes damage in the walls of the arteries, particularly since there's already inflammation there, which causes more inflammation. Okay, so you get these little holes basically in the walls of the arteries, and your body has to repair that. How does your body repair that? Your body repairs that by putting in a patch. If you have a hole in the artery, you need to patch it. So what does your body do? It takes cholesterol and calcium and it uses that to make a patch in the wall of the artery. So that's how the cholesterol gets into the walls of the arteries. It's not there because you ate too much cholesterol. It winds up being in the walls of the artery because it's your body trying to repair the damage from the inflammation in the walls of the artery. So you can see that by telling you that cholesterol causes cardiovascular disease, it's not really giving you complete information. It's giving you wrong information that then causes a lot of people to not understand what's really going on. And we buy into the programming that we are given by the government and by the people talking about dietary recommendations and all of those things about how to eat. So it's like that's one area where we get this very confusing information and mixed messages about how we're going to eat. So this whole cardiovascular health was also the basis behind the recommendation that we eat not just low cholesterol and low fat, but also low salt. So the whole message that eating too much salt causes high blood pressure is again based on old studies. So if they gave people now a lot of table salt, then that might cause high blood pressure. And I don't know the specific studies that were done about this, but why would table salt cause people potentially, not for sure, to have high blood pressure? What is table salt? Table salt is sodium chloride with bleaches and flow agents, chemicals, to make it white, and so when you pour it, it flows. So it is pretty much pure sodium chloride plus chemicals. Our bodies were designed to have whole salt, the salt from the ocean. So if you have seawater and you have blood, seawater and blood are the closest in constituency because the minerals and the substances in the ocean, in the seawater, are what's in blood. We need all of those minerals that are in the seawater to supply our bodies with the minerals, not just for our blood, but for our enzymes for function, for all the minerals needs that our bodies have. We need all of those trace minerals that are in the seawater. So our bodies were designed to consume salt. It's got all of those minerals. People in tribal days used to walk for thousands of miles. They used to walk for days and days and days and days to get to the ocean where salt was available. And people used to travel around with salt and trade with salt because salt is such a critical nutrient, right? We need salt that's got all those minerals in it. It's a whole food. So what happens when I eat salt that is table salt, sodium chloride plus bleaches and flow agents? It's missing all of the trace minerals, all the other minerals that should be in that salt. Okay, the salt that I use, I have Celtic salt, and you can see that it's gray. It's not white. Okay, so Celtic salt is made in France, where they have these salt flats, places on the ocean where they allow seawater to come in, they block it and they let it dry. And when the water has dried off, you have these salt crystals that form, and then they scrape it up. And so it's gray because it's got little bits of clay from the clay beds for the salt beds. Okay, and it's got all of the minerals from the ocean in it. So I eat some of that salt every day when I wake up. Plus, I salt all my food. So I eat quite a bit of salt, way more than people who think they have to have low salt need to be. And sometimes I will eat even more because I start feeling like I'm craving more salt. You can go to a health food store and they should have Celtic salt there. Yes, Melissa says she loves the Celtic salt. So, but if you go to your health food store and you ask them, ask one of the clerks, one of the salespeople there, they should be able to help you find what you want. Now, you want to have salt that's still moist. So you can see I keep it in a closed mason jar, okay, because there are elements in the salt that evaporate off, particularly the iodine. The iodine comes from the seawater. And there's little pockets inside the crystals of salt where there's a little bit of seawater in there, so you're getting some iodine. So iodine is not added, the whole salt, but I like having salt that's got a little bit of moisture in it. When salt is moist, it's alive. So a lot of people love using like Himalayan crystal salt, and it's mined from a mountain in the Himalayas. That salt, I think of as being dead. Yes, it's got a lot of minerals in it, but it's completely dry. And I don't think it's going to have iodine in it. I mean, there are people who say that it does have iodine. I don't trust that. I really like having the Celtic salt that's got the minerals from the ocean in it. Now, I was talking about, what happens when you eat table salt? Unfortunately, it's basically table salt that's used in almost all of the processed foods that are out there. Okay, so what you're doing when you're eating table salt is you're getting sodium chloride plus bleaches and flow agents. And we're not going to deal with the chemicals right now. Those are just toxins. Okay, but what happens when you have one mineral in your salt? What does your body have to do to be able to process that salt? It has to pull all of the other minerals that are in this salt out to be able to deal with that sodium chloride. So what happens is it depletes your body of all of the other minerals. Does that make sense? When you have sodium chloride without the other minerals, you're depleting your body of all of the other minerals. So if there was a study at one point where they gave people salt and it increased their blood pressure, I think that's why. Because of the mineral depletion that resulted from eating that salt and not getting all of the minerals that are supposed to be in the salt that you eat. Okay, does that help? Those are the big things that I think give confusing messages to people about food. Other than that, you have the whole issue with, this study, that study, new study this, new study that. And part of the issues with studies is that they aren't formulated the right way, and that's confusing. The results they get aren't necessarily giving the messages that they really should be giving, because the people who publish them don't necessarily have our best health in mind. They may be more interested in profit, selling products, selling drugs, keeping people sick, all those kinds of things. So it's like I don't usually put a lot of stock in what they say on the news about this or that study, and this is what it says about food. I have a lot of people who I listen to with information about health and food, and those are the people who I trust more. So there are a lot of podcasts I listen to and blogs and things like that from people who are functional medicine practitioners. They're usually the people who I'm going to trust more when it comes to health recommendations, people who are in functional medicine. Okay? I think I've talked enough about those confusing messages about food and what we should eat. Anybody else have a question or about that or about something else? Hi, Cora. Oh, lovely people. So nice to see you all here. Anybody else have another question? Let's see, what else can I say? While you guys are thinking about questions, I will talk more about salt. I don't put salt in my water because I don't like drinking salty water. I know some people do that. And yes, I will talk about meat. Meat versus being vegetarian. Oh yeah, that's a big topic. I don't like drinking salty water. So in the morning, like I said, I take some salt. I take a pinch of salt and I put it in my mouth and I drink water. I take it at the same time as I take my supplements, and I think of the salt as being a supplement. But like I said, I will also take more sometimes because I crave more, because I feel like my sense is pretty good about how much salt I need. There's one person who I know who used to drink a lot of coffee, and this is one of my massage clients for a long time. And I got her so she stopped drinking coffee, and I got her started drinking water, which was great. And that made a tremendous amount of difference. And she was always really good about drinking water. Then I got her started on the salt. And she could tell when she wasn't getting enough salt because she was peeing more. She was always good about drinking water. She completely stopped the coffee and was drinking plenty of water. Okay, but if you drink a lot of water and you don't have enough salt, you're actually depleting your body of more minerals. Because to be able to get rid of that water, your body winds up pulling a little bit of minerals just to deal with having too much water and needing to urinate a lot. So if that client was not getting enough salt, she realized it because she was peeing more. So she would get more salt and then she'd be peeing less. So what happens with the water when you have enough of the minerals? Okay. Another thing about the minerals is your body needs the minerals to be able to pull the water into your cells. If you don't have enough salt, when you drink water, if you don't have enough minerals, it doesn't have to be salt, but if you don't have enough minerals and you drink a lot of water, it's like pouring water on a dry plant. It just flows out, right? When you have enough minerals, you have enough salt, the electrolytes in the cells are able to pull the water into the cells. So it's like that friend. When she had enough salt, she didn't need to pee as much because the water was getting to where it actually needs to be, which is inside your cells. There. Okay. Eating meat versus being a vegetarian. Now, this is a personal opinion. I know a lot of people agree with me, but there are some people who don't. So I used to be vegetarian. I used to eat eggs and dairy, but still be a vegetarian. And I now believe that when I was vegetarian, I was depleting my body of vital nutrients because there are nutrients that our bodies need that we can't really get just from plants. Technically, I think it's possible to get them all just from plant sources, but it's a lot of work. You have to put a lot of focus and money in and time into cooking everything and making sure you get all the nutrients that you need if you're not eating animal products. Just reality. Okay, so what are the nutrients that you can't really get from plants? The most important is the fat-soluble vitamins. Vitamin D, which most people know about, vitamin A, okay, vitamin E, and vitamin K2. Okay, so it's really hard to get those fat-soluble vitamins, particularly in the quantity that we need them, if you're not eating animal foods. They're fat-soluble and they store in your body for longer periods of time. So it's like with the water-soluble vitamins, like vitamins B and vitamins C, right? If you have more than you need, they're water-soluble and you'll urinate them out. Okay, but the fat-soluble vitamins aren't like that. So they tell you if you have too much vitamin D or if you had too much vitamin E, it's bad for you. And so people are discouraged actually sometimes from taking any sort of quantity of those vitamins. Because when you have fat-soluble vitamins, they store in your tissues and then your body releases the little bit that it needs. And if you have too much, it can actually be toxic. But the truth is, it's a lot harder to get toxic amounts of D and E and A than they make you think, right? So animal foods have a lot of those fat-soluble vitamins in forms that our bodies are able to utilize, right? There's another issue with the fat-soluble vitamins that when we take them in supplement form, if they're synthetic, they're not in forms that our bodies maybe are going to be able to use. Right? And there's this whole thing about vitamin D2. Vitamin D2 is the vitamin they use to supplement foods, like milk has D2, and they'll supplement cereals and grain products and things like that with vitamin D because they know we don't get enough, right? So, but vitamin D2 does not get readily used by the body. The body needs vitamin D3. And it is possible to take vitamin D3 in supplement form, but really it's best to get it from the foods that you eat. And animal foods are where you're going to get those vitamins from. Okay, same thing with A. Talking about meat, even people who eat animal products, a lot of times do not eat the organ meats. And organ meats are some of the richest, most valuable sources of these fat-soluble vitamins, like vitamins D and K, and D and A and K2. We personally do not eat as many organ meats as we really should. I mean, theoretically, we would have, liver, for example, once a week, and eat the other, the heart and, some of the other organs. We don't do that. We have liver sometimes, and eggs, a reasonable amount. But there's just a lot of other nutrients in meat that you're not going to get from plant foods. So if people want to work to make sure they get all those nutrients, then I guess technically it's possible. Another vitamin that gets really depleted in people who are vegetarian is B12, and the right forms of B12 and all that stuff. Vegetarian, there are people who have been vegetarian for decades and supposedly being healthy. I think it's hard to accomplish that. There are the fat-soluble vitamins is one of the sticking points there, and usually these people are people who have been vegetarian starting out in adulthood or later in their life, and so you have a store that your body has put into long-term storage, basically, of those fat-soluble vitamins, and then your body uses those up over time, and then when you get depleted in those, that's when some people get sick. So it's like Lierre Keith wrote a book called The Vegetarian Myth, and she was vegan for 20 years. And she did serious damage to her nervous system and her health. And she's been a meat eater now for a really long time. And, she still has continual pain in her back because she did so much damage to her nervous system by being vegan for 20 years. So she is now definitely an advocate of eating meat. The source of your meat really makes a difference. So having sustainably raised animal foods, so grass-fed, pasture-fed, depending on the type of animal, the most nutrient-dense sources of food that you're going to have. And when people are vegetarian, they also depend on, crop foods, grains and things like that. And they just don't realize how many animals get killed in the process of raising plant foods. So that's it for today. Thank you all for being here. I will talk about apple cider vinegar tomorrow, maybe. So thank you all for joining me. Thank you, thank you, thank you. It was fun. See you all again.